The year is 2011. You just left the movie theater to watch Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. You're sad. The movie series you've been watching since you were a child is over. You turn on the radio. LMFAO's Party Rock Anthem is playing. You love this song. It makes you happy. You whip out your BlackBerry, texting your friends on that lovely keyboard. Wait, BlackBerry? It's 2021. 10 years later, this company's reinvented itself, and we're going to talk about the changes right now. Hey everybody, Walrus here from Walrus Street, bringing you a DD Today, a deep dive due diligence into BlackBerry. Just a reminder, I am not a financial professional. All information in this video is for entertainment purposes only. This video might be coming a little bit late considering the peak of the BlackBerry hype was tied to GameStop, Nokia, AMC at the end of January, but I'm covering this because BlackBerry is a legitimate company and it's misunderstood. I'm sure by now, if you're following investing, you're aware of BlackBerry, you're aware that it's not a hardware company anymore, and it's actually a software company, a cybersecurity company, an OS company. I have had a lot of people requesting this, and BlackBerry just released their most recent earnings report last week. It was terrible. The stock price dropped like 9%. So we're going to take a look at it today and figure out if it's a good buying opportunity right now since the stock price dropped 9%, or if we should wait a bit. Let's get started. This is their website. You could see the same old familiar BlackBerry logo, but right away, intelligent security everywhere. Our devices changed where we work. Our security is changing how we work. I love this little tagline here. This is actually brilliant marketing because they're not just talking about devices in general, but they mean them as a company. This is at the same time an encompassing statement that makes everybody feel connected, but also it's an homage to the former BlackBerry that was a device manufacturer. In just 2 sentences, they let you know the history and the present of the company. Whoever designed this deserves a raise. From cybersecurity to critical event management to Internet of Things, when we say intelligent security everywhere, we mean everywhere. Security shouldn't just be smart, it should be intelligent. We're reimagining protection with artificial intelligence and machine learning. We make everything more secure and you more productive. The biggest moneymaker right now for BlackBerry is BlackBerry QNX. QNX is a RTOS, real-time operating system. So maybe you think of an OS and you're like, oh, my Windows 10 or my Apple iOS. Or on your phone, you have your Android. BlackBerry QNX is an OS on its own. Because it's an RTOS, it's a real-time operating system. It's a different kind of operating system that's capable of dealing with problems without crashing the entire operating system, like your favorite Windows blue screen of death. The idea behind the BlackBerry QNX is that it's not going to BSOD on you. It's not going to crash out and make you lose everything. If there's a problem with the OS, the system can bypass it without shutting down. In an era where we're moving soon into driverless cars, driverless air taxis, it's important to have our vehicles running on an operating system that's not going to crash in the event of a missing file or a corrupted file. It's trusted in embedded systems everywhere. It delivers a time-tested real-time operating system, hypervisor, and other embedded software to make you successful. It's already in 175 million vehicles. Also, the company is focused on security, like I said. Unified Endpoint Security, UES is what they're calling it. Bridging the gap between zero trust and zero touch. Zero trust is going to be a concept that we come back to a couple of times in this video today. So remember that one, zero trust. Unified Endpoint Security. Organizations today face a chaotic environment as cybersecurity threats become more sophisticated, more pervasive, while the numbers of connected enterprise endpoints and the amount of data being shared grows exponentially. To bring order to this chaos, a comprehensive security approach to endpoint security is essential to protect against and remediate cyber threats while providing visibility across all endpoints. This is where they have their BlackBerry Spark, and BlackBerry Spark provides a total solution for zero trust with full coverage across the full spectrum of devices, network, apps, and people. BlackBerry has a lot more going on for it right now, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to focus on QNX QNX and Spark because this is the big source of their revenue as the company stands right now. I was looking for an explanation of RTOS to kind of simplify things because I don't use RTOS, I just use a plain OS. Most of you also use plain OSs most likely. Ultimate Guide to Real-Time Operating Systems. When RTOS, a real-time operating system must be fast and responsive, schedule tasks and manage limited resources, and ensure functions are isolated and free of interference from other functions. There are two types of RTOS architectures, monolithic and microkernel. BlackBerry QNX is a microkernel, whereas Linux Ubuntu, which is another operating system, is a monolithic RTOS. The reason that I specifically use Linux in this example is because we're going to be talking about how this OS applies to electric vehicles. The most noteworthy electric vehicle, Tesla, uses a form of very altered Linux operating system. So the Teslas don't operate BlackBerry QNX, but nearly every other EV in the world does. The main responsibility of an operating system is to manage hardware, resources, and activities in a system. When the OS has to handle multiple events concurrently and ensure the system responds to those events within predictable time limits, this is called a real-time operating system. In a monolithic OS, a single programming error in a file system, protocol stack, or driver can crash the whole system. So for a monolithic RTOS, the advantage is they have higher performance. Also, the entire OS is contained in a single static file, which runs faster typically. Disadvantages, the failure of any service can crash the OS, and it's vulnerable to attacks with a larger footprint, thusly it's difficult to debug and maintain. A microkernel RTOS is structured with a tiny kernel that provides minimal services. The microkernel works with a team of optional cooperating processes that run outside the kernel space and provide higher level functionality. For a microkernel RTOS, the advantage, fault isolation recovery for high availability, restart a failed system service dynamically without impacts to the kernel. You know, the age-old, did you try turning it off and turning it back on again? No need to reboot. Disadvantage, more context switching, which can increase overhead. Now that's a lot right there, but we have monolithic versus microkernel. Microkernel would be the BlackBerry QNX, and the big takeaway here is if there's a problem in the OS, microkernel operating system, the microkernel RTOS can bypass the problem without shutting down the entire system. Once again, I cannot stress this enough, in computerized EVs, in computerized planes, in computerized air taxis, the need to reboot the entire system would be catastrophic. One more benefit that I kind of touched on is security. The security benefits of microkernels have been frequently discussed. In the context of security, the minimality principle of microkernels is, some have argued, a direct consequence of the principle of least privilege, according to which all code should only have the privileges needed to provide required functionality. With microkernel OSs, there's a compartmentalization. Think of this like the OS version of need to know, privileged information access. If you don't need to know, you're not told. This stops errors from happening. With BlackBerry, which is a cybersecurity company, you can see how the functions of the QNX microkernel RTOS fit with the ethos of the company focusing on cybersecurity. They kind of go hand in hand right here, and it's a really wonderful pairing. I was looking for BlackBerry QNX competitors because I like to keep these videos really objective, and these are the top competitors. Windows 10, Android, Ubuntu, Apple iOS, basically all operating systems are the competitors. And I know that's not exactly right because they're not all microkernel RTOSs. But I guess the idea here is that Microsoft has enough money to create a microkernel RTOS, and who knows, maybe they have one in development. I didn't actually check. But right now, BlackBerry is the front runner in this area. Now let's talk about the total addressable market, as I often like to. Now with QNX, the big application is going to be in electric vehicles. But it's hard to talk about the TAM for just a single component in the electric vehicle market. So you have to assume that every electric vehicle sold is going to have an operating system installed on it, so the amount of operating systems are roughly proportionate to the amount of vehicles, right? I think that's a fair assumption. This study by Facts and Factors say the EV market share is projected to reach $700 billion US with a 22% CAGR by 2026. Cool, 22%, that's really high. But of course I want to double check that figure. So I went to another website, Million Insights, saying the market size is going to be over $1 trillion by 2027, and the CAGR is going to be 41.5%. That's a pretty big difference between these two studies, 22 to 41.5. So for argument's sake, let's just split the difference and call it 30, since it seems nobody knows what they're talking about anyway. We can make up a number too. 30% CAGR for EVs. Sounds great. For real though, either way, 22% or 41%, it's a really high CAGR no matter what. So if we assume that most of those vehicles are going to have BlackBerry QNX, which is a good assumption, this is a strong case. Now, why am I making that assumption? 7 of 7 top automotive tier 1s embed BlackBerry. Over 45 automotive manufacturers embed BlackBerry. It represents 61% of the current EV market. It is the top ranked automotive operating system. There's already 175 million vehicles on the road with BlackBerry as the operating system, and 9 out of the top 10 automotive OEMs embed BlackBerry. So right here, you can see that it is the industry leader right now, as it stands, as the embedded system in EVs. I want to move on to the cybersecurity aspect of it and kind of look at the growing market here. This is an article that I actually touched on my channel a couple months ago. This is from January 28th, and this was after the SolarWinds hack involving Microsoft. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella says there is a big crisis right now for cybersecurity. The reason I'm bringing this up right now is I believe Satya Nadella is an incredibly well-respected CEO. Microsoft was hacked through the SolarWinds hack. That's a whole different story. I want to read you some of these quotes. Nadella says, "What we have built is very helpful in times of crisis, and there's a big crisis right now, but you need to sort of obviously build all of this over a period of years, if not decades, and then sustain it through not just product innovation, but also I would say practice every day." So Nadella's takeaway here is that security is a long process, and it requires a very fleshed out system to make security unexploitable. Microsoft's vice president of security went on to say security has to be built in at every single point. It cannot be an afterthought. Nadella said there needs to be a real different approach to creating a cybersecurity solution for customers. In what is an interconnected world, it's not about any one-point solution. It's about having, I would say, an architectural approach, which then needs to be reinforced every day. I know this is the Microsoft CEO and the Microsoft Vice President of Security talking about their own products, but what does this sound an awful lot like? It sounds like the architecture that's been built from the ground up, from the microkernel operating system of QNX and the services that BlackBerry provides. BlackBerry has been focused on high security from the very beginning, and you can see the quotes saying that's exactly the way it should be done. So I really liked this because it shows what BlackBerry is doing is what some people think should be the industry standard. Now let's take a look at the TAM for cybersecurity. Again, we've got a range. This study here from Allied Market Research is saying valued at $150 billion in 2019, projected to reach $300 billion in 2027, CAGR of 9.4%. Okay. Next one up, this is Global Market Insights saying 2019 market size of $160 billion. We're going up to $400 billion in 2026 with a CAGR of 15%. That's a big difference. 9.4% to 15%. That's like over a 50% increase. So both of the TAMs that we've looked at for EVs and for cybersecurity have a huge range. So everybody's just guessing. But if you average these two, 12.5% for cybersecurity, splitting the difference, and you can see that BlackBerry is positioned in some high growth rate industries. Now, on top of that, it's not like BlackBerry is just some fly-by-night cybersecurity company. We know that they're an established brand, but also this is the Cybersecurity Excellence Awards for 2021. In the automotive category right here, BlackBerry won the gold prize for their unified endpoint security for vehicles. The Cybersecurity Excellence Awards are very legitimate. It's a very prestigious award for the company to have received. And for them to be taking gold in the automotive category, they're doing something right. It's not like they're just cheap for all these manufacturers to use. They're safe. They're doing good things. Now let's take a look at my 4 questions before investing in a company. Who's in charge? What's the product? What are the financials? Who else is involved? Their CEO, John Chen. John came to BlackBerry a distinguished leader and proven turnaround executive with more than 40 years of engineering and management experience, along with a reputation that extends well beyond the technology industry. He was brought in to make the transformation of BlackBerry from a hardware company into a software company. BlackBerry's sales peaked in 2011, and then there was a fast drop-off where BlackBerry phones started losing out to iPhones and Android phones. The company realized this and understood they needed to do something different because it's really hard to compete with Samsung and Apple. So they started switching into a software company, and for the last 7 years, John Chen has been in charge of that transformation, and I want to focus on this. A global business leader with strong interest in policy, John testified before Congress on U.S.-China trade relations, appointed by U.S. President W. to serve on the President's Export Council. 2006, he was appointed co-chair of the Secure Borders and Open Doors Advisory Committee, chaired the U.S.-China Policy Advisory Roundtable, served on the board of the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations. Pretty sure you guys could figure out where I'm going here. He has ties to China, historical ties to China at a governmental level. If you've been following EVs, you know that China is adopting to EV infrastructure faster than any other country in the world. And on top of that, China is the second largest economy in the world. Their CEO has an in with China at the governmental level, and China has the fastest growing EV market. This is a good thing. This has actually paid dividends. Now, I don't know how much John Chen has directly dealt with these negotiations, but you have to assume he's had some part in it. This is on January 27th of this year. BlackBerry rises again after expanded BIDU partnership. BIDU is most easily explained as being the Google of China. You guys know future is in data and data collection. BIDU is a company with more AI patents than any other company in the world, and with China's, let's say, lax policies on rights to personal privacy and data, China can collect more data than any other country in the world. So BlackBerry has partnered with BIDU. Under the expanded partnership, BIDU's high-definition map will be integrated with BlackBerry's QNX Neutrino real-time operating system. The integrated system will be mass-produced and available on Guangzhou Automobile Group's electric vehicle arm's upcoming GAC New Energy Aeon models. GAC is one of China's largest automakers. It also makes the Hyken 007 cars under a joint venture with EV startup NIO. So this has led to rumors that the BlackBerry operating system is also being used in NIO cars. Now, these are just rumors, and I don't have facts to verify that, but it is a compelling thesis seeing that they're partnered with GAC through BIDU, and GAC has a partnership with NIO. BlackBerry makes China push as the OS for Xpeng smart cars. This is from last August. BlackBerry announced it will be powering the Level 3 driving domain controller of Xpeng, one of the most funded EV startups in China and Tesla's local challenger. Baked in Xpeng's intelligent cockpit is BlackBerry's operating system, QNX, which competes with the likes of Android and Linux to enter the automaker's next-gen models. We have links with BlackBerry and BIDU, BlackBerry and GAC, BlackBerry and NIO, possibly rumored, and definitely BlackBerry and Xpeng. It's worth noting because we always talk about employees having bad working conditions, but we rarely focus on the good ones. Just before Christmas, BlackBerry received 11 Employer of Choice and Best Place to Work awards in 2020. Typically, happy work, happy life. And employees that enjoy where they're working are more productive than employees that don't enjoy where they're working. Common sense, but it's worth mentioning. Recognized as the best and brightest company to work for, top employer, and awarded for a family-friendly culture. So the management's doing something right at BlackBerry. This is their investor presentation. I'm going to include the investor presentation link below this video. You guys can check it out, go through it on your own. It's 39 slides. I'm not going to go through all of it right here. BlackBerry secures over 96% of the enterprise threat landscape. It's an Internet of Things market leader. They have a 26% year-on-year software and services revenue growth, 76% gross margin. This is the type of gross margin that you expect from a software as a service company, which is what BlackBerry has become. It's in 19 of the 25 top EV automakers, and I read something that since this was updated, they're actually up to 21 out of the 25. They have over 38,000 patents and applications. Take that with a grain of salt, though. A lot of those pertain to their hardware, and they're in the process of selling those patents. But the company hasn't stated, because of the negotiations, they can't, how many of those patents will be sold. And a 7% operating margin. Business transformation, hardware to software. To show you how big of a change this was, previously as a hardware company, they were only 3% software and services. Now they're 98% software and services. This is talking about their business transformation from hardware to software. Their revenue in 2014 was $6.8 billion with a 38% year-on-year decline. 2020, it's only $1.1 billion, but it's a 20% year-on-year increase. Gross margin went from 36% to 76%. When they exited the smartphone business, this coincides with John Chen's appointment as CEO. So he has overseen this entire journey. This mentions their revenue reporting. They get revenue from two groupings, software and services and licensing. They actually license their IP patents. They license their technology technology and they have service access fees, but also for their software and services, they get memberships for BlackBerry Spark, which is the unified endpoint security, BlackBerry QNX, which is their operating system, BlackBerry Ad Hoc, critical event management. We're not going to talk about that too much today, and BlackBerry SecuSUITE, which is a security function. Another one we're not really going to talk about. One that is worth talking about is BlackBerry IVY. BlackBerry IVY is an opportunity to harness data in the car. Diverse sensors generate huge amounts of data in unique formats. BlackBerry IVY collects all of the vehicle data, all of the environmental data, like the weather, smart city data, mobile wearables. It applies them into the vehicle for customized charging, occupant detectors, child detection, insurance monitoring. This digital ecosystem has an addressable market for all automakers, suppliers, app developers, consumer services, smart cities, EV charging providers, insurance companies, vehicle maintenance providers. Basically, IVY is a data collection function of BlackBerry. And what's most exciting about this, because with data collection, you need a place to store it, like the cloud, guess who BlackBerry's partnered with? Oh, you know, just Amazon. Amazon Web Services and BlackBerry QNX joined forces to accelerate auto innovation with BlackBerry IVY, a new intelligent vehicle data platform. Now, I've seen various reports that this IVY software is going to be available within a year or two. So take that for what you will. We could be looking at 2022, 2023 for IVY being put into cars. If you're wondering whether or not this is significant, consider the case with Uber and Lyft and the fact that Kathy Wood and ARC didn't like them anymore because they weren't taking advantage of data with their drivers, data collection. BlackBerry IVY is going to make it possible for all vehicles with the BlackBerry QNX to be collecting all of this disparate data, uploading it to the cloud for analysis. This is a data scientist's simultaneous dream and nightmare dealing with all of this. But in our modern economy, data is money. This is BlackBerry Spark, unified endpoint management security system. The whole purpose behind BlackBerry Spark is that currently there's too many vendors with access to devices and data. Mobile devices are very vulnerable and endpoints are changing. And here we get to the zero trust of BlackBerry Spark. Components work in concert as a foundation for a zero trust enterprise security architecture. So we go back to what Satya Nadella and the vice president of security of Microsoft were saying. You need to start security from an architectural perspective. You need to have a secure foundation built. BlackBerry Spark uses AI security with a zero trust protocol to link humans to machines through behavioral analytics, continuous authentication, constant monitoring, and adaptive policies. Here's BlackBerry QNX. We touched on that already. BlackBerry Ad Hoc helps with critical event management. The concept is just how do you communicate with your staff, contractors, visitors, and students quickly if there's an incident. It gets clear, time-critical feedback, reduces downtime in IT, and minimizes disruptions. And the last one is BlackBerry SecuSUITE, secure voice and messaging, sovereign network, control of data, contact verification, security certifications. It does everything. One thing the company has been doing very well is a constant stream of PR. This kind of reminds me of Nokia, where you see positive PR on the company almost every week. If you go to prnewswire.com and just type in BlackBerry, you get, I know some of these are actual, like literal Blackberries. Ignore the ones on the fruit, please. You know, they have nothing to do with this. You get reports and articles on them almost 2 times a week. You could just go through this on your own. It's actually really cool. That brings us to question number 3. What are the financials? They're not good. They're really not good. The company has 562 million shares outstanding and a float of 555 million, which that's a lot. I mean, there's other tech companies with more, so it's not terrible, but it's really not great. Short float is only 6.78%, so that doesn't really come into play here. Insider ownership is high at 11%, but insider transaction is down 1%. Insiders have been selling the stock in the last 3 months. We also see on the chart this giant spike here and then come down. The spike ended up going almost up to $30. That was with the GameStop situation at the end of January. Their forward PE is 58.9, which is, I mean, it's pretty high. Market cap of 4.99 billion. Like I said, they just had their earnings call on March 30th, and I want to kind of go through part of this. You could get the full transcript on Motley Fool. Just type in BlackBerry earnings call transcript. In their earnings call, their revenue missed estimates and the stock price dropped by like 9%. This is the CEO's explanation for why the revenue was missed. This quarter, we entered into an exclusive negotiation with a North American party for the sale of the portion of the company's patent portfolio, primarily related to mobile devices, messaging, and wireless networking. BlackBerry will retain rights to use these patents. Patent association with the company's strategic software and services businesses, including Spark, QNX, Ivy, secure communication, and critical event management, will continue to be owned and managed by BlackBerry. That means they're selling the old stuff, they'll still be able to use it, and they're keeping the new stuff exclusive. The company has not yet reached a definitive binding agreement, and negotiations are ongoing. The company limits its licensing activities in the quarter due to the negotiations and because of accounting rules. This results in licensing revenue being lower than expected. So right here, the CEO gives a very good reason as to why the revenue missed its estimates. The company entered negotiations to sell its patents, and as a result had to stop licensing its patents out. Those patent licenses actually made up a substantial percent of BlackBerry's revenue. So it was their choice to stop licensing it out because they want to unload these patents in a lump sum sale to generate capital. In the question answer section, Michael Walkley asked to understand the negotiations for the licensing sale a little better. The CEO said, it's a major portion of our portfolio that's being negotiated for. We cover three major areas: cellular, wireless communication, and networking, things that are relevant, but it's not useful to us today in our strategic software part of the business, and we retain all embedded and all site ends and all the encryption and security patents. Follow-up question from the same analyst. They're talking about like double-digit growth. The CEO says they expect double-digit growth in both Spark and BTS. BTS is not the K-pop group. It's actually BlackBerry Technology Services. Single-digit performance growth in Spark and double-digit performance growth in BTS. They posted an earnings of 3 cents per share. It declined 66.7% year over year, but in line with estimates. The revenues of $215 million fell 26%, missed estimates of $246 million. If we go into Simply Wall Street, pretty bright future, pretty bright health, low pass, low value, low dividend. Simply Wall Street has fair valuation below where it is right now. They think it's 6.5% overvalued. EPS growth forecasts have a turnaround coming. Simply Wall Street kind of understands that this company is in the stages of a turnaround. Financial health looks good, more assets than liabilities, short and long term. Debt isn't terrible. That brings us to question number 4. Who else is involved? There has been insider selling in the last 3 months. You could see the insider selling right here. It happened right when the price of BlackBerry started shooting up prior to the GameStop spike at the end of January. Ordinarily, I would say insider selling is bad, but here you can just say the insiders were doing what they thought was right, what would make them the most money, because the stock was detaching from reality at this point. I mean, come on, you would probably make the same sell too if you were sitting at thousands of shares of a company and suddenly it gains 3, 4, 5 times value in like a week after not moving for years. For the funds involved, we've got Fairfax Financial, Vanguard, Arrow Street, Wells Capital Management. Wow, the CEO actually has a huge amount of shares, 7 million shares. Invesco, Staley Capital, Two Sigma. Normal. Now, the analysts are not very high on this company. A lot of them think it's going to underperform. Hedge funds kind of sold out since last quarter. Insiders sold out. The bloggers, the retail opinion is bullish because probably have a lot of bag holders in there from retail. And analysts are saying this is a moderate sell. Take a look at the chart. You can see the dip down here after earnings. Before that, we were just kind of up and down since January in a range between 12 and about $8. RSI is just kind of in the middle of the channel right now. MACD is actually indicating a bit of a reversal. This could be a buying opportunity, but the analysts are not high on this at all. There's 8 analysts covering it. 5 of them have it as a hold, 2 have it as underperform, 1 has it as a sell, and the analyst projections range from 450 to 950. Currently, we're at 860. If you look at the Webull price distribution, almost everybody bought in higher than the current price, and this happened during that acceleration where longtime holders were unloading their shares at the higher price. New people were coming in buying at the higher price, and almost everybody has gotten burned at this point on BlackBerry. Let's do a SWOT analysis really quickly. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Strengths, it is a first mover in the field. It's already adopted in many vehicles. First movers are really hard to dislodge. It has an extended patent portfolio. This is going to give it a moat in some areas through the patents. It's going to give it licensing revenue, royalties long term. Also, they have consistent leadership throughout this turnaround, so the company has one unified vision. Weaknesses, the company's unprofitable, plain and simple. Their competitors that they're going up against have more money. Look at the other operating system manufacturers, Microsoft, Apple. I know they don't have the same type of microkernel RTOS as QNX from BlackBerry, but they can make one if they need to. When your competitors have more money than you have less margin for error. There's a legacy brand misunderstanding. A lot of people, the layperson, not the savvy investor like you, but the layperson still thinks BlackBerry is a dead cell phone company, not a completely live operating system and cybersecurity company. This is going to incur extra marketing expenses to change the brand reputation in the public's eye. Another weakness is that it has been affiliated now, for better or worse, as being a meme stock with GME, AMC, Nokia. So it has to kind of shake that reputation for people to see the real value that's there. There is insider selling. I talked about the justification for it, but it is a weakness in most people's eyes. Opportunities? Growing markets. Cybersecurity and EV are both growing markets going into the future, and we don't know exactly how much they're growing, but they are growing. Also, the company has global partnerships with AWS and BIDU. I know Amazon's American, but you got to remember BlackBerry is a Canadian company, BIDU is a Chinese company. Both of these are huge data companies, and BlackBerry could be providing tools to assist them through the partnerships. Threats. As I mentioned before, they have competitors, and if the competitors develop products, then BlackBerry won't be the de facto operating system to go into these EVs. Other threats would be the performance shortcomings of microkernel RTOSs. Monolithic RTOSs have better performance if you can stop them from crashing. So microkernel ones do have slightly worse performance over time. There's a reason they're chosen for EVs, but you do have to consider that. If monolithic ones can get a workaround to the crashing for the entire OS and the need to reboot, perhaps we switch back to monolithic RTOSs. Another threat would be a benchmark miss with Ivy. BlackBerry has rebuilt so much of its identity recently on this partnership with Amazon Web Services. It's almost like it's the legitimacy test for the company in the US market. If Ivy fails as a product or it fails to be adopted, then truly I think BlackBerry will be sunk. The company selling that massive patent portfolio for its hardware is kind of a metaphorical casting off of the shell of the old company as it steps into the new. It's going to be using the money from the sales to complete its transformation into a pure software as a service company. So what's my play here? I'm actually not going to be buying shares in BlackBerry, and I'm going to be playing this one purely through options. My plan is to open up the $7 calls for January of 2023. I'm going to be buying some leaps on this. Probably only one. I just want to represent 100 shares as with normal protocol in my portfolio. In the meantime, I'm going to be selling cash secured puts on BlackBerry. I'm going to be doing these probably with monthly expiries. And the reason I'm going to be doing this is because I think the share price is going to be dropping a little lower before it starts going up. So I can make some money in the meantime on selling the puts. Now, I'm not saying I'm bearish on this, but the company already announced its best partnerships with Amazon Web Services and BIDU. So the next big catalyst coming up is going to be the announcement of that patent sale. We should be getting that announcement here within the next quarter, but we don't have any specific details as to when. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is just sell cash secured puts. And if the price of BlackBerry gets beyond my comfortable range to purchase it in, then I have no problem not buying it because I'll have the representation with the leaps. So that's what I'm going to do. Just sell cash secured puts with about 1 month expiries every month. Collect the premium on that. If I get assigned, I get assigned. Then I start wheeling it with covered calls until it gets called away, at which point I'm not going to chase it because I still have the leap. So I'm just going to play BlackBerry purely through options. All right, everybody, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed my coverage of BlackBerry. It's not your dad's cell phone company. If you're new to investing and you want to support the channel, please check out my Webull referral link below the video. If you sign up for an account using that link, deposit $100, you get a free stock, I get a free stock, everybody wins. The free stock that I'll be getting is worth $30 or higher because I am partnered with them. Also, if you did enjoy the video today, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to be alerted to all my content as soon as it goes live, make sure you hit that notification bell. All right, everybody, thanks a lot. Have a great day. I'll see you next week.